What if your whole life is just an illusion? Are you sure you truly know your family, your partner? You come home after a long day, tired but happy, anticipating the warmth of your loved ones. And then, one stray word, a phrase overheard in the hallway, and your world shatters. The love you trusted turns out to be a lie, a careless laugh, a name you've never heard before. Nigel just knows how to make life more exciting. And your heart stops beating. What do you do when betrayal becomes reality? When the person you devoted years of your life to turns out to be someone else? Trust vanishes, leaving behind only pain, suspicion, and a thirst for truth. But are you ready to know it all? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. Nothing in life truly prepares you for the moment when everything you've worked for crumbles in an instant. I had always assumed that betrayal was something that happened to other people, relationships that had faded over time, couples who had let distance grow between them. Never once did I think it would happen to Celeste and me. We weren't perfect, who is? But I believed marriage was about consciously choosing each other, day after day. That belief had always been my anchor. For Celeste's birthday, I wanted everything to be just right. I spent weeks searching for a meaningful gift, a delicate silver necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. Inside, I had 2 words engraved: forever yours. It wasn't expensive or flashy, but it was sincere, a symbol of the love we had nurtured over the years. That day at the office in New York City dragged on endlessly. Meetings blurred together, and the constant ring of my phone was a dull hum in the background. But through it all, the thought of surprising Celeste kept me going. By the time I stepped through our front door that evening, exhaustion weighed on me, but excitement pushed it aside. I imagined her expression, the warmth in her eyes when she saw the gift. The familiar scent of her roasted chicken filled the air, wrapping the house in a sense of comfort. Laughter floated from the kitchen, Celeste's voice interwoven with Mallory's giggles. Normally that sound was my favorite melody, but something about it felt different this time. There was an undertone to Celeste's laughter, something light, teasing, almost flirtatious. A strange tension coiled in my chest. Setting my briefcase down, I moved toward the kitchen, not intending to listen, but unable to stop myself. I hesitated at the doorway, my heart pounding as their voices carried through the air. "I still can't believe last night," Celeste murmured, her tone dreamy, almost lost in thought. "He's just so charming, so different." My breath hitched. Who was she talking about? My mind scrambled for answers. It couldn't have been me. I had been at the office late. Then she said his name, and my stomach dropped. "Nigel just makes everything feel exciting again." Her words sliced through me like a blade. I stood frozen, the world shifting beneath my feet. Mallory, just 10 years old, tilted her head in innocent curiosity. "What do you mean, Mom?" Celeste hesitated before laughing softly. "You wouldn't understand, sweetheart. Let's just say he makes me feel special." A wave of nausea hit me. My hands trembled as I took a step back, my thoughts unraveling. Who was Nigel? A colleague? A friend? Or something far worse? The gift in my pocket suddenly felt like a cruel irony. The moment I had been looking forward to, her happiness, her surprise, had dissolved into something unrecognizable. I stumbled into the living room, my breath uneven. Celeste's laughter carried on behind me, each note driving the dagger deeper. I collapsed onto the couch, staring at the blank wall as the weight of her words settled over me. That night, I said nothing. Celeste kissed my cheek before bed, and Mallory hugged me goodnight, unaware that everything had changed. I forced a smile, pretending life was as it had always been. But as I lay beside Celeste in the dark, staring at the ceiling, I knew the life I had known was gone. The trust, the foundation we had built together, it had all unraveled in seconds. The next morning, the house carried on as though nothing had happened. Celeste hummed as she prepared breakfast, her demeanor light, untroubled. Mallory chattered away about school, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I barely sipped my coffee. The bitterness in my cup was nothing compared to the bitterness spreading through my chest. "You okay?" Celeste asked, glancing at me casually across the table. Her voice was even, unconcerned, as though she had no idea what I had overheard. I forced a nod, my voice hollow. "Just tired. Long day ahead." She nodded in response, offering a fleeting smile before returning to her phone. I studied her, searching for any trace of guilt, but if she felt any, she concealed it well. If there was regret in her heart, she wasn't letting it show. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I needed something solid, proof that she couldn't twist, couldn't deny. The thought of facing her unarmed filled me with dread. What if she deflected? What if she turned it against me? I couldn't risk that. So, I watched. I became an observer in my own home. Every glance she exchanged with Mallory, every text, every hushed phone call, I analyzed everything. It felt wrong, intrusive, but I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that what I had heard was only the beginning. Then, one evening, while Celeste showered, I found myself standing before her phone. It rested on the counter, silent and still. My hands trembled as I picked it up, my pulse hammering in my ears. I hesitated, caught between the desperate need for answers and the fear of what I might find. The lock screen yielded without resistance. She had never changed her password. And there it was, his name, right at the top of her messages, Nigel. I opened the conversation. At first, the messages seemed innocent, light-hearted jokes, casual conversations. But as I scrolled, my stomach tightened. "Nigel, last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." "Celeste, I feel the same." My vision blurred. My breath came in shallow gasps. The fear that had been gnawing at me was no longer just fear. It was real. If only we could go back. The words sent a sharp twist through my gut. Every message felt like a fresh cut, slicing deeper than the last. My fingers trembled as I captured screenshots, each one irrefutable proof. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was real. It was happening. The next evening, I sat alone in the dim glow of the living room, my phone a weight in my palm. The damning messages glared at me from the screen, their meaning impossible to deny. From the kitchen, Celeste hummed softly as she rinsed the last of the dishes, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. Mallory had shut herself away in her room, buried in schoolwork, leaving an unnatural silence in the house. All day, anger and grief churned beneath my skin, threatening to break free. No matter how much I tried to distract myself, the words burned in my mind. Finally, I spoke. "Celeste." Her name, sharp and clipped, made her pause. She turned, a dish towel still in her hands, her face already wary. "What is it?" she asked cautiously, something fragile in her voice. She knew. She must have known what was coming. I lifted my phone, the screen casting a cold glow between us. "Who is Nigel?" The color drained from her face. Her grip on the towel tightened. "Francisco, Don't," I interrupted, my voice cutting through the air. "I saw the messages, I know. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise." She inhaled sharply, her eyes wet as she turned away. "It's not what you think," she murmured. "Then explain." My voice was a low tremor, barely containing the fury roiling beneath. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like you've been sneaking around behind my back." She hesitated, twisting the towel between her fingers. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I never meant for this to happen. It just did." A bitter laugh escaped me. It just did, I echoed, incredulous. You don't just fall into an affair, Celeste. You made a choice. You betrayed me. That was when she crumbled. Her knees buckled, and she sank into a chair, shoulders shaking with sobs. I stood frozen, torn between the love I once felt and the unbearable weight of her betrayal. The days that followed were a slow descent into chaos. We only spoke when absolutely necessary, our words empty and brittle. The tension wrapped around us like a suffocating fog. Even Mallory noticed. The light in her eyes dimmed, replaced by something uncertain, something wary. One night, I found her sitting cross-legged on her bed, staring down at her hands. I knocked softly, and she looked up, hesitation clear in her expression. "Dad?" she asked, her voice small. "Is something wrong?" I exhaled, the weight of it all pressing down. "Mallory," I began carefully, "do you know who Nigel is? Has your mother ever mentioned him?" Her face went pale. She looked away, fingers gripping the edge of her sleeve. "I didn't think you knew," she murmured. Her words hit like a blow. "You knew?" My voice cracked. "Mallory, why didn't you tell me?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't know how," she whispered, voice breaking. "Mom said, she said he made her happy. She told me you wouldn't understand." A fresh wave of pain crashed over me. My daughter, the one person I thought I could always trust, had been carrying this burden alone. I pulled her into my arms, my own vision blurring. "None of this is your fault," I murmured. "You should never have been put in this position. I'm so sorry." After that, the weight of it all became unbearable. I had spent my life believing I could protect Mallory from pain like this, that I could shield her from the worst kind of heartbreak. But Celeste had pulled her into this mess, forced her to carry a truth too heavy for a child. The silence in the house grew heavier. Celeste and I barely exchanged words, and when we did, they were hollow and cold. Mallory, desperate to escape the tension, kept to herself, avoiding the spaces where we lingered. Our home had become a prison of unspoken truths. One evening, I decided it was time. Celeste sat at the kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone as if everything was normal. I stepped in and placed a manila envelope in front of her. She blinked up at me, confusion flickering in her gaze. "What's this?" she asked warily. "Proof." My voice was even, devoid of warmth. "Proof?" she echoed, her fingers hovering over the envelope. "Of what you've done," I said simply. "Of the fact that I'm not blind or stupid." Her hands trembled as she peeled open the envelope. Inside were the screenshots, the messages, the evidence of every stolen moment, every hidden betrayal. Alongside them was a timeline I had painstakingly pieced together, dates, meetings, all the things she thought she had kept hidden. She flipped through the pages, her face paling with every revelation. "Francisco," her voice wavered. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything." My tone was cold, final. "There's nothing left to say. I just wanted you to see the damage you've done." Tears slipped down her face as she sank into her chair. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered. The betrayal, the lies, the destruction of everything we had built. "I'm filing for divorce," I said, my voice steady, unshakable. "I've already spoken to a lawyer." I would go to any lengths to ensure Mallory emerged from this as unscathed as possible. When I met Celeste's gaze, her face was frozen in disbelief. "Francisco, please," she whispered, desperation seeping into her voice. "Don't do this. We can work through it. I made a horrible mistake, but I still love you." Her words rang hollow, like an echo in an empty room. I held her gaze, my tone unwavering. Love doesn't mean betrayal. It doesn't mean deceit. And it certainly doesn't mean dragging our child into the middle of your recklessness. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving her alone with the weight of her actions. For the first time in weeks, a burden lifted from my shoulders. I had taken my first step toward reclaiming my life, and I had no intention of looking back. That evening, I knocked gently on Mallory's bedroom door. She was seated at her desk, exhaustion evident in her posture. When she looked up, her voice was barely audible. "Dad? What's going on?" I settled on the edge of her bed, exhaling slowly before speaking. "Mallory, none of this is your fault. What's happening between your mother and me is because of the choices we made. You are not to blame." Her eyes shimmered with tears as she shook her head. "But I knew, Dad. I knew and didn't tell you. I thought I was protecting Mom, but I just made everything worse." I pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her as she sobbed against my chest. "You're a kid, Mallory. You should never have been put in that position. That was your mother's responsibility, not yours." We stayed like that for a long time, her quiet cries soaking into my shirt as I gently stroked her hair. When she finally leaned back, I wiped away her tears and offered her a reassuring smile. "We're going to get through this," I promised. "You and me, no matter what." The next morning, I reached out to Caleb, the friend who had stood by me through so many storms. He listened intently as I laid out everything that had happened, his expression darkening with each revelation. When I finished, he leaned forward, his voice firm. "This Nigel guy sounds dangerous. If you want, I can look into him, find out exactly who we're dealing with." I hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Do it. I need to know everything." Over the next few days, Caleb used his connections to dig into Nigel's past, uncovering more than I had dared to imagine. Nigel wasn't just some meaningless affair. He had a pattern. He sought out married women, manipulated them, and discarded them when things became complicated. His history was riddled with lawsuits, shady business dealings, and whispers of criminal activity. Armed with this knowledge, I met with my lawyer again. "This isn't just about divorce," I told him. "I want to ensure neither Celeste nor Nigel can harm Mallory, or anyone else, ever again." When I confronted Celeste with the evidence, she recoiled, her voice trembling. "You're lying," she insisted. "He's not like that." I dropped the thick file onto the table in front of her. "Read it, and then tell me if you still believe that." Hesitation flickered across her face before she slowly turned the pages. With each damning revelation, her expression grew paler. By the time she looked up, her eyes were brimming with unshed tears. "I didn't know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I had no idea who he really was." Her words did nothing to quell the anger simmering inside me. "No, Celeste. You didn't care. You didn't care about me, about Mallory, or about the damage you were inflicting on us. You welcomed this man into our lives, and now we're all suffering the consequences." She clutched the papers with trembling hands, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. I had seen this before, the regret, the sorrow. But this time, it felt selfish, as if she mourned for herself rather than for what she had done. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "What happens now?" I folded my arms, my resolve hardening. "That depends on you. Are you going to continue pretending everything is fine? Are you going to ignore what this has done to Mallory? Or are you ready to face the consequences?" She remained silent, her expression empty. And in that moment, I knew. Celeste wasn't looking for redemption. She was simply trying to survive the storm she had created. "I've already spoken to my lawyer," I told her. "The divorce will be finalized soon. I will make sure Mallory is taken care of and protected from all of this. But you made your choices, Celeste. Now, you have to live with them." Mallory deserved the truth, even if it hurt. She had been kept in the dark for too long. A few days after my confrontation with Celeste, I sat her down in the living room, the weight of the conversation pressing heavily on me. Mallory, I began, keeping my voice steady, there's something I need to tell you. It's about your mother and me. She clutched a pillow to her chest, her eyes searching mine. Are you getting a divorce? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. A lump formed in my throat as I nodded. Yes, sweetheart. We are. Your mom and I have been struggling for a long time, and it's clear now that we can't fix things. But I need you to understand, none of this is your fault. None of this was her doing. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she averted her gaze, unwilling to meet mine. I heard the argument, she admitted, her voice barely audible. I knew something was wrong. I reached out, my hand resting gently on her shoulder. I know this is hard to accept, but no matter what happens, your mother and I love you. That will never change. We've made mistakes, and now we have to figure out the best way forward, for all of us. She gave a small nod, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. Leaning into me, she murmured, I just want things to be good again. In the days that followed, Celeste made countless attempts to reach me. She left handwritten notes on the kitchen counter, sent long, heartfelt messages filled with remorse, and even sat outside my office late into the night, hoping I would let her in. But I couldn't. Every word she spoke was a fresh wound, a painful reminder of what had been lost. One evening, she confronted me in the living room. With Mallory spending the night at a friend's house, the only sound was the steady rhythm of rain tapping against the windows. Francisco, please, she implored, her voice unsteady. Let's try. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. I don't want to give up on us. I turned to her, my expression unreadable. Try to fix this? I repeated, my voice laced with bitterness. Celeste, you didn't just hurt me. You hurt Mallory. You tore our family apart. This isn't something a few therapy sessions can undo. She flinched but held her ground. I know I made a terrible mistake. I know I hurt you. But I still love you. Doesn't that mean anything? I exhaled, shaking my head. Love isn't enough to undo the damage. You made your choices, Celeste. Now I'm making mine. And so, the divorce process began, bringing with it all the pain and struggle I had feared. Rebecca, my attorney, was sharp, calculated, and unwavering. She guided me through every step, reminding me to stay composed, to resist Celeste's emotional pleas, and to always keep Mallory's best interests at the forefront. Celeste fought bitterly over custody, arguing that her mistakes did not define her as a mother. But Rebecca came prepared. She laid everything bare, her affair, its impact on Mallory, and made it clear why I should be the one to have primary custody. When the judge made the final ruling, it was in my favor. Celeste was granted visitation, but Mallory would live with me. It was a victory, but it didn't feel like one. I never wanted to take Mallory away from her mother, but I knew this was what she needed. As the dust settled, Celeste's life unraveled. Nigel, the man she had risked everything for, disappeared when his shady business dealings came to light. Friends who once welcomed her now kept their distance. Her reputation in the community crumbled. She tried to pick up the pieces, but it was obvious she was struggling. Meanwhile, Mallory and I focused on rebuilding. It wasn't easy. Some days, the weight of it all felt unbearable. But I pressed forward for her. I made sure she felt safe, that she knew she was loved, and that we would face the future together. In time, the sharp edge of the pain dulled, replaced by something softer, something resembling hope. Mallory smiled more. Her laughter, once absent, filled the house again. I threw myself into work, into hobbies, but most of all, into being the father she needed. Slowly, our lives started to feel whole again, not defined by betrayal, but by resilience. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, she let out a contented sigh. I'm glad we're okay now, Dad. I'm glad we're happy. I smiled, pulling her close. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I truly believed it. Our story has come to an end. This story serves as a powerful reminder of how fragile trust and family bonds can be. Love is not just words, it's a daily choice that requires honesty, respect, and commitment. Betrayal doesn't happen suddenly. It grows from indifference, lies, and a lack of open communication. But even in the darkest moments, we must remember, destruction is not the end. It's an opportunity to start anew, to reevaluate our values, and to surround ourselves with those who truly appreciate and respect us. The biggest lesson here is to never be afraid to set boundaries, to protect our dignity, and to choose our own happiness and the well-being of our loved ones. Because sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to walk away from those who are breaking you. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.